Hello, everyone. I am Dianne Hull. I am excited to have so many people here today to get ready to prepare for the Biosciences Career Fair. We are going to get started and we're going to we're going to blow through a lot of slides really quickly to get you guys ready. So let's get started. If you have questions as we go along, please add them into the chat. So if any of you need to leave early, this is being recorded and it will be made available shortly, hopefully by the end of the week. So again, I'm Dianne Hull. I'm one of the Senior Associate Directors here in Career Services. I work with graduate students and postdocs, and I am excited to talk to you a little bit about career fairs. This was billed as Prepare for the Biosciences Career Fair, but all of the information that I'm going to be sharing today is really going to be great for any particular kind of career fair. And I am going to spend a little bit of time talking about virtual career fairs as well, because tomorrow you can begin registering, signing up to meet with employers for next Friday, September 22nd, all industries virtual fair. So I want to make sure you have information for that as well. So we're going to talk about action items. What can you do now to prepare? Day of, what can you do to maximize your experience? How to make the most of career fairs in general? And I want to make sure that we talk about resume books specifically for the Biosciences Fair, because you as students have until September 19th to submit your resume for the resume book. So this is where you're going to go into Handshake and find all of our career fairs. As you can see in the top left corner, there's the All Industries Virtual Career Fair, in which registration opens tomorrow. The Biosciences Career Fair is, again, what many of you are here to chat about today. And we are excited that that is an in-person fair. Excuse me. And so you can actually register for that fair now. Registering simply means that you are going to get information about it ahead of time over email. Registration isn't necessary. It's much more important for the All Industries Virtual Career Fair. And thank you, Lisa, for dropping the link in the chat for that. So again, we're here talking a little bit about the Biosciences Career Fair. Since I put this particular slide together yesterday, we now have additional employers. So we're up to 38 employers, so we're really excited for that. What do you need to do to register for the Biosciences Career Fair? All you have to do is click on Join Event, right? It's helpful to know that you're coming. If things change, if employers add or cancel, we will update you over email. You need to bring your pen card or your CHOP or Wistar ID if you don't have a pen card. If you want, you can bring paper copies of your resumes. Not all employers take paper resumes. Some want to take them electronically, but you certainly can bring them. You want to be prepared with a verbal introduction for yourself, in which you can share a little bit of information about your experiences, about your interests, and most importantly, bring questions for the employers. If you are interested in participating in our All Industries Virtual Career Fair, which we're going to be talking about later, again, registration opens tomorrow. And so you are welcome to register for that and then sign up to meet with particular employers individually and in groups. And I'm going to go over how to do that. So here's a traditional career fair on the left. That's over in Houston Hall, which is where the Biosciences Career Fair is. Virtual career fair is you having the opportunity to meet with employers in one of two ways. One is one-on-one, 10 minutes, you and an employer having a conversation. Many employers also offer group sessions. These tend to be 30 minutes long, and they can have, upwards of 50 students that are participating. So you're welcome to do that as well. So best practices for in-person career fairs. Here's just some things that you can be doing now. Do take a look at the list of employers on Handshake and pay special attention to any jobs that they have posted within Handshake or on their website. Do some research, generate questions that you want to ask them. If you are actually interested in a job or internship, of course, if you are not and just want to come and meet with employers, you are welcome to attend as well. But if you are targeting a particular job or internship listing, then you do want to bring a resume with you and upload your resume to the resume book ahead of time. It's an easy thing to do. Some of the employers that are coming to the Biosciences Fair and other fairs are also setting up on-campus interviews. They may also be doing coffee chats here in our office on Locust Walk. So pay attention to that, and you want to participate in any of those as you can. So best practices for in-person arrival and greeting. Smiling is key, right? Displaying a friendly persona when you're interacting with employers is always helpful. Shaking hands is optional. I mean, pre-COVID, I really think everyone was shaking hands. Now I think some people do, some people don't. But if you do want to shake hands with people or you want to be prepared for that, you can practice that. Think about a 30-second intro. When you come up to a table, what are you going to say first, right? Who are you? What kind of relevant experience might you have that an employer is going to be interested in? What do you know about the position? What do you know about the employer? And conveying interest and enthusiasm. Absolutely, you can ask a question. They love questions. A great question is, can you share with me more information about what type of candidate you're looking for and what kind of skills you might be looking for them to bring? That's a good question. Another great question is, so what do you do, right? And sort of putting the onus on the employer to sort of answer some questions for you. Sorry, we went back. I'm meant to go forward. So best practices, knowing how to follow up, right? So you're going to meet some people at the career fair on the 29th at the Biosciences Career Fair. You really want to be prepared to follow up with them, right? Because if you meet people and you have a good interaction and then that's the end of it, it may not go anywhere. So you want to think about how you can follow up with employers after the fact. How can you reiterate interest? How can you propose next steps? One of the things that you can do when you're there in person is ask them about the best way to stay in contact throughout the process, right? So you may speak to an employer who says, wow, you seem really interesting. We don't have a position open for you right now. You might say, how would it be great? How would be effective and helpful for me to keep in touch with you? Consider, when possible, to send a brief thank you email afterward, right? If you have the email address of the person, thanking them for taking the time to meet with you. And leveraging any information that you gained in your next resume or interview, right? What are you going to do when you actually interview or when you make your resume next that you've learned from this interaction? Virtual career fairs. So we're going to talk a little bit about the perks of those. No lines or major time constraints. If any of you went to the engineering fair yesterday, it was pretty crowded. Sometimes maybe an employer you wanted to talk to had a long time to wait. This is going to have no lines or major time constraints, and you can schedule in advance, right? So that's something that you definitely want to think a little bit about. Time to adequately prepare and research employers, right? So that's something that you really want to think about. How are you going to adequately prepare? And when you're doing a virtual fair, you really have time because you know exactly who you're meeting with and exactly when you're meeting with them. One-on-one discussions scheduled with a specific person and without distractions from the other person or from you, right? So like no one's waiting in line behind you. 10 minutes long, the set period of time, you know that it's only 10 minutes. So it's a little bit friendly for people that are more introverted and a little bit less interested in having a conversation in a large room. Group sessions with employers for Q&A from students, 30 minutes long, great for exploration, right? You can sit on the call, you can turn your camera off, you can ask a question or not ask a question, whatever works for you. And no managing things like bags, coats, notebooks. Nobody's really managing coats this time, but you don't have to sort of figure out where to put things. So that's a benefit. How to prepare your handshake profile. So regardless of whether you're going to participate in the Biosciences Fair in person, or if maybe you want to do all industries next week virtually, you want to prepare your handshake profile, right? So you want to make your profile as helpful to an employer as possible. So you're going to log into Handshake and you're going to click on your initials up here on top. And then you can add, we're going to take a look at my profile and we're going to take a look at settings here and how you're going to put that together. So this is my profile. So you can see I have uploaded a headshot. It's pretty old. And you can also see that my profile is only 15% complete. Not great, right? Want to fix that. We really want to be able to show an employer as much information as possible. Basic things that you want to check and make sure that they're correct are things like graduation date, school year, major, GPA, particularly graduate students. For those of you who have attended an institution prior to Penn, you want to make sure all of that information is accurate and up to date. While you're here, update your interests, right? So you can make your profile public to employers. As you can see here on the left-hand side, I made mine visible to employers, students, and alumni across all Handshake education institutions. I'm kind of an open book. And so then, but why not fill out some of your interests, right? Tell them a little bit about if you're looking for an internship, if you're looking for a full-time job, is there a geographic area that you're interested in? What kind of industries interest you? Why not tell them more? So if they look at your profile, they're going to learn more. Other basics under settings, make sure you can include your pronouns if you choose to do so. You can also choose if you want employers to see your pronouns, if you want students to see your pronouns. You can enter things like gender, race, and ethnicity. These are all optional things. You do not have to include them, but they are things that you may be interested in sharing with an employer. You also want to update privacy, right? So this is in the settings section. And so in this case, do you want to make it so that Your profile is available to the entire community, just employers, or just no one at all. And you definitely want to add work authorization and indicate what your work authorization is, because there will be some employers who will require that information in order for you to see and or apply for some of their opportunities within Handshake. So these are all things that you can do on your profile, which are helpful for the virtual fair and for job searching in general. You can also upload your resume here. So if you go to that right-hand pull-down menu and click on My Documents, you can add resumes, cover letters, you can add transcripts. If you have other documents that you think might be interesting to an employer, you can add those as well. Okay, so once the registration opens for the virtual fair, which is tomorrow, for the All Industries Fair, and I did notice that Lisa added the link into the chat, so take a look at that. You can register for one-on-one and group sessions. Some of these will fill up very, very quickly. And so you really want to pay attention to when the registration is open. So if there are particular employers that are interesting to you, that you can really schedule a time to chat with them. In these next few slides, I was not able to show you actual open registration information for the All Industries Fair because it's not open yet, right? And so what I'm showing you are screenshots from previous fairs. So I don't want you to get excited thinking that some of these employers are coming to the All Industries Fair and they're not. So these are just take a look at the example. So once you register for the fair, you can click on available sessions. You can then click on your schedule, and then you'll see group sessions, maybe one-on-one sessions, and what times those are available. And so you want to, this is how you're going to sign up tomorrow. Then you want to think a little bit about what time is it that you want to, right? And so in this particular one, this Easily West Labs, again, an example, they're giving you some information about what times are available and who you might be meeting with. So maybe you have a preference to meet with an engineering manager versus a recruiter, you can choose that. Group session registration is also something that you can take a look at. Register for these group sessions. They tend to allow for Q&A, during which you can pose questions directly to the employer. We really do recommend that if you hop onto a session that you stay till the end. Some of these sessions are managed through Handshake. If they are managed through Handshake, there are no cameras on at all, and there's no audio. You're only chatting through, you're only asking questions through chat. Some of them will use WebEx or Zoom or another kind of platform in order to host. And so then there you may see some with video and audio available, depending on what the employers are doing. If you don't see available sessions, it means that they are either full or they're in the process of setting up their sessions. So I encourage you to check back. Couple of best practices for virtual career fairs: avoid scheduling back-to-back sessions if possible. You're limited to 10 minutes, but you very often need to use the restroom, get a drink of water, reframe yourself. So try and avoid doing that. Group sessions, I think, are always worthwhile. 30 minutes of your time, very low risk on your case. Check back to see additional availability. Students will book, and then something comes up, a lab's running late. They know that they can't make it, they'll cancel. Identify an appropriate space and dress in semi-professional attire. I should have said business casual. I wouldn't even say semi-professional. You just don't want to be wearing, a dirty t-shirt or something like that in case there is cameras on. Often for the one-on-ones, the cameras will always be on. For the group sessions, you may not really know until you get there whether your camera is going to be on or not. Couple of quick things. You can enter the video sessions 5 minutes early, so you want to be on time. Introduce yourself, smile, ask informed questions. Same advice for an in-person career fair. Take notes and make sure you get down the name of the person that you're speaking with so that you can thank them later. Ask them for their email address, inquire about next steps, and leave time for wrapping up, right? Recognize that they are booked back to back, generally speaking, and so you kind of have to move on. I'm sharing the slides to this when we're finished today, but technical considerations, these are just a couple of things if you want to test your network's information ahead of time, so that you want to take a look at making sure that your video is working, having a link to your resume ready, right? So if you have it online, you can share it with them. Employers will have access to your resume after they download a list of participants if you've uploaded your resume to Handshake. And just be aware of your sound settings. These are some resources, which I won't really go over, to just, take a look at attending virtual career fairs. Okay, so things that you want to think about. Again, checking the registration open dates and marking your calendar. Tomorrow's the date for the All Industries Virtual Fair. Updating your profile, making your profile visible to employers, updating your resume and creating some sort of shareable link is always helpful. Make sure that you have a space in order to do this, select an outfit to wear for the fair, and, take a look at researching. So I want to go over, why is a career fair helpful, right? Why should you be motivated as a student when you're really busy to attend a fair, either in person or virtually? So the first is, you do not have to be looking for a job or internship to benefit from a career fair. You may be someone who's a PhD student in your second year and you're not graduating for 3 or 4 years. You could be someone who isn't sure what you want to do next, but you can always have conversations with employers that could be helpful. Employers pay a lot of money to come to these career fairs, and they want to have conversations. They want to speak to you. You are not bothering them at all by dropping by their table, by coming to their group sessions. And so the more conversations you have with employers now, the better you are positioned to interview with them later. And it's better that they may come back later, right? Because they've had these great conversations. If you want to learn more about an employer, you can ask questions. That's what they're there for. If you're interested in an employer and you're wondering, gosh, I don't even know if I'm really qualified for this, you can ask questions that might help you figure out, how well qualified am I for this position? And you can absolutely learn something that's going to be helpful in creating your documents, and then let you submit a better version of your resume later on. So after you participate in a career fair, you can easily decide what skills you want to gain while you're on campus. Write better resumes targeted to employers. When you write cover letters, when you participate in interviews, you can always say, oh, that's so-and-so at the University of Pennsylvania Career Fair. Follow up with alumni for informational interviews and identify next steps for your future networking. This next guide that I'm sharing with you says Career Guide for Graduate Students and Postdocs. I really think that it's all very helpful information, regardless of what your personal status is as a student in terms of informational interviews. This guide is on our website. The link is going to be provided at the end, and you can absolutely take a look at all of these different questions that you might think about that might be helpful in terms of putting together your resume and participating in the career fair. Here are some great questions that you might be able to ask at a career fair. I looked at your website, saw you were involved in this kind of project. Can you tell me a little bit more about this? In a job posting on Handshake, one of the skills mentioned was this. What are some of the things that you look for in a resume to demonstrate this? Both of these questions serve two purposes. One, you are showing an employer, hey, I'm really interested in the work that you've done. I've done some homework ahead of time. I looked on Handshake. I looked at your website. So you're demonstrating interest, but you're also gaining information. So that's helpful. Great question. When are internships normally posted? When would be the best way to apply for this? Can you tell me, oops, sorry, clicking too fast. Can you tell me more about your roles that are good for someone with an advanced degree? I'm not applying right now. I want to make sure I'm a good candidate. What advice would you give me in terms of some of the skills I should try and develop? What other ways do you engage with Penn students? All of these questions show not only that you have good information, but they also show that you are an interested candidate. Sorry, flipping here. Talking with people will always help you understand what experiences and skills are valued, allow you to listen to the way that they talk about their roles they're interested in. This is how you write a resume, right? This is going to help you. And it will all help you to write a more effective and customized resume. And resumes, jobs, are to illustrate relevant skills in action that are relevant to the job. So we're going to talk about that next. I want to take a quick pause. Some people are asking about the slides. Yes, I have a QR code. The last slide is a QR code with all the slides that you can hop onto today, and then the video will be posted onto our YouTube channel once it's edited, which hopefully will be by the end of the week. So let's talk about some resume best practices. I've got 5, okay? We're going to try and blow through these quickly. So what is a resume? A resume is really an illustration of relevant skills. It is not a list of everything that you've ever done in your life. That's more of a CV, but it is an adaptable communication tool. And so it's not just a shorter version of a CV. It is a more focused version of a CV. It's not only one page, although for undergraduates, generally speaking, you can get away with a one-page resume, and that's what we would recommend. But for particularly graduate students or for those people with an a lot of experience, you would definitely think about a longer one. Resumes are used in almost all career fields and are also, the source material for a lot of other things. One of the things that people, challenges that people have with resumes are a couple things. Using the wrong language, not using the resume to tell a story, including experiences that, while interesting to you, may not be relevant to the job. And the reality is that you really need different versions for each job that you're applying to, right? So for any job that you're applying to, you really want to take a look at that. People asked a little bit about the resume books. Sorry, the slide's in the wrong spot, but this is information about the resume books. The deadline is September 19th. And again, there's information on our website, which we can share about that. Lisa shared that earlier. Okay, so what are the conclusions of your resume? So what you want to think about when you're putting together a resume is, what do I want someone to draw away from this resume? It's the number one thing that you want them to take away from this. So your resume must be more than just, I have a great education background and I have a lot of experience. You're going to have to think about core skills and themes. And so when you think a little bit about what are the takeaways from the resume, that's the key. That is the key. Summary statements at the top of a resume, especially mentioning the industry or role you're seeking, are very helpful. And we have some examples of this, right? So this is a summary of qualifications, particularly if you're going to a career fair and you have paper copies of your resume and you know that you're going to be, interacting with, 5, 6, 7 different employers. You want to make sure that you're giving them each a resume that's helpful, but you probably don't want to be going through your folder and trying to figure out who gets which resume. So you can have a summary of qualifications at the top, which sort of highlights some things for employers that would be interesting. The next thing is prioritizing skills and keywords for your audience, right? So I used a couple of different examples here of how can you switch things around based on what it is you're applying to. So in this particular case, let's say that you're applying, people list these different programming languages, right? And very often people list them in the order in which they come to mind when they're typing them. Maybe you sort of think about, I used MATLAB first, then I got into Python, like maybe it's chronological, but you can move things around based on what it is you're applying to. So let's give the example of a job that specifically mentions C++ and SolidWorks as a required skill. Well, don't have it buried in the middle, make it first. Make it easier for the employer to find it. And so here's an example of that, right? Move things around based on what it is they're looking for. It sounds like such a simple thing to do, but it is something that a lot of people, forget, is that you really want to think about, how can I rearrange things so the things that are most interesting to an employer are going to pop up first. Here's another example. So here's a way that someone has described their experience. One, they've been a lab assistant at the Department of Otolaryngology, which I love saying, at the University of Pennsylvania. And they also have worked at CHOP as a violence intervention project, clinical research assistant, right? So for a data-focused role in the tech industry, right? If you're sort of trying to take some of these data science roles that you've used in clinical research and move them to the tech industry, why have that be the last bullet point? Move it to be the first. Maybe it wasn't the biggest part of your job, but it's the biggest part of your job that is now relevant to what you're applying to. And so you want to change that. And so this is this is a way that you can rearrange things. Again, something that often a lot of people don't think about. So now we want to think about how you can structure your bullet points in terms of skill, context, and outcome, right? So what is the skill? Right? What is the skill that is being demonstrated when you are describing a previous experience? And you want to think a little bit about what's the active doing verb: managed, analyzed, created, designed. One key takeaway per bullet point is kind of what your target is. But then you really want to take context, right? So you want to think a little bit about why. Why were you doing this, right? What is the context in which you had the opportunity to demonstrate this skill? And you don't want to detract from the actual skill, but what's the context? The third is the outcome. Like, what did this activity that you were doing, in what context, what did it lead to? Did you publish something? Did you create a quantifiable change, increased efficiency by 10%, something saved a certain amount of money, right? What is it that you could do to talk about the outcome? So if you look at some of these particular bullet points, conducted market research analysis for a startup. We'll use that as an idea, right? My question is, okay, why? Like, what is the context in which you are conducting market research? And conducting market research is a skill, but how, right? Like, are you interviewing people? Are you using a data set that's already out there? How is it that you are conducting this market research? And then the outcome, right? Like, okay, for a startup, did the startup get funding? Did the startup, what happened, as a result of that? So when you look at some of these bullet points, these are a good start to be thinking about, but you want to get into a little bit more depth. So again, then you want to think about what is the skill or experience that they say that they're looking for. They're looking for someone who has strong communication skills to work with diverse team members. They're looking for a demonstrated ability to problem solve, right? So how are you going to describe your particular job in a way in which you're demonstrating, I already have this skill, right? So if you see this first one, collaborated with 3 chemical engineers and physical chemists from 2 international labs to coordinate detailed project management update meetings, ensuring strict adherence to research protocol. What's the skill, right? What is the skill that we're demonstrating? The skill that you're demonstrating is collaboration. What's the context? International labs, coordinating detailed project update meetings. What's the outcome? Strict adherence to research protocols, right? So you can see a little bit about skill, context, and outcome. Great question. Someone's asking the question, if we are applying to many internships that have different things they are looking for, should we create many versions of our resume? The answer is yes. That is the best thing that you can do, is have multiple versions of your resume. And rather than try and create those multiple versions of your resume ahead of time, I think it's great to have a starting point of a resume, and then you're editing the resume based on what it is you're applying to. Because chances are there are ways that you can really personalize a resume for different roles, and tweak it a little bit to make it better. So here's a job description of someone who is a STEP intern, which is a student temporary employment program with the federal government. And you'll see synthesize data from EPA guidance documents, consulting with coworkers, and the Superfund statute, right? These are skill, context, outcome. Developed 2.5-hour online training course for Superfund project managers that will be given to approximately 250 people via live internet seminar. Great skill, context, outcome. The skill is developing a 2.5-hour online training course. The context is a Superfund project for on-site remedy selection. What's the outcome? It will be used by 250 people via live internet seminar, right? So you're showing even more skill of that live internet seminar. Another thing that's really important to take a look at is formatting. And so formatting is one of the things that we in career services can really help you with. I would greatly encourage all of you to have your resume reviewed before you send it to an employer, before you submit it to the resume book, before you participate in a career fair, because it's really easy to not see your own formatting mistakes because you've looked at your resume so many times. So just a couple examples. This is really pretty crowded. I see a lot of people with very crowded resumes. What you're trying to see is really to see the forest through the trees, right? You're trying to really direct the reader in a very specific direction. You know where you want them to go. And so you want to sort of take away all of the distractions. What I often say to people with resumes is, I don't think employers are necessarily offended by mistakes of formatting on resumes, but you don't want them to focus on the mistake. You want them to focus on the actual information. And so that's really the biggest difference. You'll see a couple of things here in terms of using the same amount of space versus smaller amounts of space, but we need to have distinct sections. And so you don't need to have large amounts of space in between each section, but you need to make it really easy for an employer to find what they're looking for. And the easiest way that you can do that is by spacing appropriately. If you are a graduate student here at Penn, and then you have an undergraduate degree, you do need a little bit of space in between those two schools, but it doesn't need to be as large as in between your education and your experience section, as this illustrates. Here's a good way in which you could potentially list 2 different degrees that you have. You can think a little bit about prioritizing key information, like what is it about this information that you're presenting that's the most interesting? Probably it's the school and the degree. You can bold things. You can use italics. I'm okay with italics, but you want to limit use of italics. One of the things that I've seen a lot of people do is try to bold a lot of phrases within a resume, and I often don't think that works very well. I think it's a little bit distracting, so you want to think about that. And think a little bit about your font. I don't care what font size you use, but you really want to use something that is working to make your resume's format stronger. So this is a little bit of a different way to list the same information from above, right? This person's using 3 lines for each of these, and we're moving it to 2. So you can think about different ways that you can present this information. Little tiny things like space within dates, you really want to take a look at. Just be consistent. Whatever, all of these formats above are fine, but when you use dates and format them in different ways throughout the resume, it gets confusing, and not confusing so much as distracting. And then I think employers tend to start focusing on their distraction and less on the content. Step away and then network and get feedback on your drafts. Again, from us, from other people. I cannot tell you how many students I meet with who have like a spelling error of University of Pennsylvania wrong. And they're like, I can't believe I did this. Thank goodness I didn't do this before I sent it to an employer. And it's an innocent mistake that people make, but the more that people look at it and you get feedback, the better. So what is most important in your resume? Obviously, the relevant context, skills, and keywords, right? That is the most key and most important thing on the resume. But there's other things that are important too. Formatting plays a role. And the other thing that really plays a role is you, right? And so when we think a little bit about you and how can a career fair illustrate you, right? This is your opportunity to really meet someone personally, either in person or virtually through a one-on-one. So, but this does play an important role. Your in-person narrative, right? Like, how effective are you at sharing your story? Your energy and enthusiasm, right? Everyone wants to work with someone who's excited to be there, who's excited, energized, right? Demonstrating your knowledge of the employer. You can have all the skills in the world, but if you walk up to an employer and you say, so can you tell me what you do? When you can easily spend 5 minutes on your phone taking a look ahead of time to figure out kind of what it is they do, you're going to put yourself so much farther ahead. They'd much rather have someone who's done their homework ahead of time, who has knowledge of them, than someone who's sort of waiting for that information to be shared. Asking smart questions. Again, some of the questions that we talked about earlier, you want to take a key look at. And being proactive with follow-up, right? At a career fair, again, if you went to the engineering fair yesterday, if you went to CareerLink last Friday, it's busy, it's hot, it's crowded. These employers are working hard. They're talking to a lot of people. But I would wager that not very many people follow up after the career fair. And if there's any way for you to follow up and keep the conversation going, you're going to find yourself in a much better position. So resources. Career Services has a lot of resources to help you. I want to make sure that all of you know that, again, tomorrow is when you can start signing up for the All Industries virtual career fair. I highly recommend you take a look at the employers that are there. The deadline for you to submit your resume to the resume book as a part of the Biosciences Career Fair is next Tuesday, September 19th. I got that right. Here is the QR code to all of the slides from this workshop. So if you want to go back and revisit some of these slides or check out some of the links, you can take a look right here. And so I will keep this up here for you so that you can take a look.